Charlie Olives versus Iron Mike. The main event of UFC 262 is coming up very quickly. We've got Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler for the vacant lightweight title strap. We're going to do a preview of the fight, how we think the fight's going to go, and then we're going to give our predictions on this one. So, Matt, let's go ahead and start with you. How do you see this fight playing out? Because it's a big one.
It is a big one. And, you know, it's for the title, obviously, lightweight title. It's going to be one of those fights where I think there's going to be a lot of time spent in the clinch and on the mat even. I don't see, Chandler wanting to spend too much time on the feet here. Maybe he will try to, keep it press, like one of those like classic like press against the fence, like working for the takedown sort of things where he kind of can work, some dirty boxing and stuff like that. But I think Oliveira will also try to welcome that if that's the route that that Chandler wants to go, because obviously if Oliveira gets it to the mat, that's his world. He can play his jiu-jitsu game all day long and be super confident there. The difference comes to how this plays out on the feet. And if we're talking about what we saw from Chandler in his debut, that's going to be really something special, because knocking out Dan Hooker like that was unexpected to me. I definitely didn't see that coming. But I think Hooker was too worried about the takedown, and I think that won't be the case here with Oliveira. Like I said, he may very, very well just give up a takedown, if he gets in on his legs deep enough. Who knows? So there's a lot of interesting scenarios that could play out here, and that's why this fight's so good. And the fact that it is for a title just adds to the intrigue as well, because we need some clarity in this division. What's going to happen, man? Who's gonna take the torch and run with it? And whoever wins, will they hold the belt for a while? Is another question, because the lightweight division is still pretty nasty. So it's an interesting fight for me, because, like I said, man, there's so many different ways that this could play out. Yeah. That's all I got to say for now. Come back to me in a second.
I know it's so good. I really love this fight, but I hate it at the same time. It's one of those because I don't want either of these guys to lose. So very bittersweet in that regard. But man, it is exciting that they're getting to fight. And I think I've grown to love it even more as it's gotten closer now, just a week away, right? So it's going to be awesome. 5 rounds, lightweight titles on the line. Can't help but feel good for both of these guys. Like, who honestly would have imagined that either of them would be in a UFC title fight at any point? I feel like we never thought that was coming until it became a real possibility a fight ago for each of these men. So it's just a really cool thing to see, I think. But as for how it will go, man, I think that it's a pretty darn good matchup for Chandler compared to a lot of the other guys that he could have fought in this case. Of course, you're looking at Gaethje, Poirier, those kind of fighters. Just because I feel like, of course, we know Chandler is probably the more powerful puncher of the two. It's very hard. He's very quick, very accurate with his punches. Maybe not so underratedly so anymore as he used to be before that Dan Hooker knockout. But on top of that, fantastic wrestler, kind of what got him to the dance. And I honestly can't remember him really being out wrestled or out grappled too much throughout his Bellator career, specifically outside of maybe that 5th round against Benson Henderson in the first fight. A couple moments maybe in the second Eddie Alvarez fight. Will Brooks, of course. I know that's 3 different people, but like they didn't completely handle him or anything. And I just feel like in terms of strength, I don't think Oliveira is going to be able to match all those competitors I just listed. And he's not a wrestler by trade, right? So I don't think he's going to be able to necessarily go in there, do what he did to Tony Ferguson, for example, who we've seen give up takedowns in the past against opponents who are, maybe not as good of wrestlers as they could be, or Michael Chandler's, for example. And Oliveira has fought at featherweight before, so just naturally maybe a bit of a smaller guy, despite having a lengthier frame than Chandler. Of course, if it does go to the ground, no matter whether Oliveira is on top or on bottom, he is going to be an absolute nightmare for Chandler. Even though at the same time, we look at just a couple fights ago for Chandler. I guess that was longer ago than I thought, but the Goichi Yamauchi fight. Goichi is an incredible, submission artist in his own right. has just a ton of submissions on his record. Chandler went to decision with him, survived on the ground. He pretty much won that fight, neutralizing him on the ground. And not to say that Yamauchi is the exact same caliber of a grappler as Oliveira, but that's a good sign that Chandler's able to hang with a guy like that who is very well versed. And, you know, I think that Yamauchi's probably bigger than Oliveira a little bit too. So just if you're going to consider those things, makes it very interesting if it goes there. I hope we do get to see it there. But again, I don't think Chandler is a guy at this stage anymore who really, he doesn't fall back on his wrestling unless he needs to, or wants to prove a point like he did in that matchup specifically. I think that, as he said, not here for a long time, here for a good time. Going to try and utilize those hands in this fight. And, you know, that's a good area for him too. Oliveira, I don't think packs the same power, won't be able to. I think he could put him away with one shot, but we see he's just a lot more diverse, a lot more, you know, he's got a lot more different attacks I think he'll approach Chandler with. And as you know, on this recent run of his, he's just looking so amazing, but you know, not a one-hitter quitter necessarily, kind of not volume either. He's just very odd, but in the best way possible, right? He looks awesome on the feet, which I think that's a good thing to kind of, he could surprise Chandler in that regard, but I don't know. I just feel like his main bread and butter, which is the grappling, I don't think he won't be able to take it there, maybe the way he usually has against other opponents, which might throw him off a little bit because it will be competitive on the feet no matter what. But man, it's just exciting. I think that this fight really does have the potential to go all over the place. I don't see either man gassing, but you know, we will find out, and I cannot wait.
Yeah, I mean, you two have pretty much hit most of the points that I was going to cover in terms of the only thing that I think will be different in this particular fight is I really think it's going to be Chandler trying to keep it on the feet. I don't think he is even if he's, you know, invited to wrestle or if he does any wrestling, I think it's really just going to be to neutralize Oliveira, and he'll want to stand it right back up as soon as possible, simply because that's Oliveira's bread and butter. If you look at, you know, the way that Oliveira's transitions in the Tony Ferguson fight was just insane. Yeah, they were so good. So, you know, you mentioned Yamauchi, and you mentioned that he's got skills, and he certainly does on the ground. But Oliveira seems to be on another level in terms of what he can do. And if Michael Chandler's smart here, he knows his advantage is on the feet. He knows he's got the power. We've seen Charles Oliveira being knocked out multiple times. We've seen him get hurt. This is something that should, you know, only encourage Chandler further to keep it on the feet, especially after knocking out a guy like Dan Hooker, who is notably very, very tough. So that's really how I expect Chandler's game plan to go here. I think Oliveira is going to be the exact opposite. I think he'll stand and strike. I feel like he likes to do that more than people let on. He usually, again, welcomes the takedown because he can do so much off of his back. He can do so many things. But, you know, in terms of what Oliveira has shown us in this incredible run to get to a title fight, he's knocked out a couple people. He's thrown, you know, good striking in there and really rounded out his game. He used to be the submission guy, and now he's really complete. And we saw that in the Tony Ferguson fight and the Kevin Lee fight before that. It's kind of he's become a complete fighter now. So it's going to be an interesting fight for a lot of reasons. The only question mark I really have is, again, Chandler's durability and his previous competition. He knocked out Hooker, right, who went through an absolute war with Dustin Poirier right before that fight. And we didn't get to see a full, you know, fight in the sense of you got to see Chandler for 5-10 minutes and then he lands the knockout. It was pretty quick. And looking at some of his other fights in recent memory, the first Benson Henderson fight, right? Like, he didn't look bad, but he also didn't exactly look, at least from that particular eye test, that, oh, he's ready for top level competition with the best of the best necessarily. So it's kind of a question mark for me in terms of, is Michael Chandler, who knocked out Dan Hooker, who knocked out Benson Henderson in his last fight in Bellator, is that guy going to show up? Or is it going to be the kind of Michael Chandler who gets a decision through utilizing some of his striking, his wrestling to neutralize? Because if it's the latter, I really feel like this is Charlie Olive's fight to win. If it's the first guy, then all bets are off, and I think he could land a big knockout. So that's how I see this fight kind of playing out. In terms of predictions, let's go ahead and move into that. Matt, Charlie Olives versus Iron Mike. Who do you got?
Man, I'm going to go with Charlie Olives, not just because of the badass nickname, but because in his last 2 outings, as I've said on this channel, he looked like the best lightweight in the world in his last 2 outings. And it was just like he flipped the switch and all of a sudden, like everything started clicking for him. He just looked like a different type of beast out there. Looks super confident on the feet. Obviously, the ground game is what it is, which is just incredible. And I think it'll just be a little bit too much for Michael Chandler. We've seen Michael Chandler, lose to Patricio Pitbull in recent years. And although Charlie is not nearly the same level of striker, I don't think, as Patricio Pitbull, I think that he can create openings on the feet, which could lead to, ground opportunities as well. So I just think that, depending on how quickly the first round plays out, how aggressive Michael Chandler wants to get, I think he can make it. I think Charlie Olives, that is, could make it a very long evening for him. If he decides to drag it out and try to work the ground game more. I have him winning this fight, man. And, if he wins the way in a similar fashion to his last 2 outings, that version of Charles Oliveira could hold the title for quite some time. So I'm very curious to see if that's the same guy that shows up. He's 31 years old and he's got, literally in the prime of his career, whereas Michael Chandler is a little bit older, but still got a lot left in the tank as well. So it's a fantastic fight for a lot of reasons. But right now, today, I am saying that Charles Oliveira gets it done.
Well, Pat, I want to go back to your comments about mentioning the first version of Chandler, which is the most recent version, and then the one who maybe goes to decisions, got the Benson Henderson decision, which I'll remind you was very dominant, despite that 5th round where Henderson came back. Remember, we got some of the most picture perfect suplexes you will ever see in that fight. Those were another chef's kiss right there. So, and what I'm going at with that is that I think we'll see the first version of Chandler because that's the most recent one we've seen, the finisher who's coming out there, guns ablaze and knocking dudes' heads into the rafters. Despite everything I've said so far and agreeing or believing that, I do favor Chandler in this matchup. I think that it's a very good matchup for him. Since the Ferguson fight, like Matt, I'm all on the Charlie Olives train, so I can't really back down now, and I don't want to. I love how the guy's looking. I got to go with him. I predicted he would be the champion. I'm riding it all the way to the top. I think that for it to happen, though, he's going to catch Chandler a little bit, and then Chandler's going to fire back. Maybe he catches Oliveira, because I just have a feeling there's no way Oliveira does not get rocked in this fight, because even if you look at the Ferguson fight, I remember there were some moments where he took some shots and didn't look like stunned, but it looked like, oh, that one caught him good. Could he have been? Like, it made you question, because we have seen him knocked out in the past. Like you said, Pat, he's been a part of some very weird, finishes in his career. Like, you go back to the Cub Swanson one, of course, the Max Holloway one, which was just incredibly bizarre. But I think Oliveira will definitely get hurt at some point, and then maybe that's when Chandler follows him to the ground and we see a crazy scramble that ends up catching Chandler, because that's just how lethal Oliveira is absolutely everywhere now. Like, Chandler's not going to submit Oliveira. We know that. If that happens, oh boy. If anybody bets on that, you're making some bank. That's just not going to happen, though. So I can't not go with the man, Charlie Olives, man. I think he'll find a submission at some point. I don't really know when. Maybe first 2 rounds, because like I said, I think we have seen that Chandler who, not here for a long time, here for a good time. He's going to come out fast and hard, look to put it on the man, and might cost him, because Oliveira, he's going to be around for a while. I think he's hit that point where he's definitely legit now.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's hard to bet against Charlie Olives here. My prediction is also Charlie Olives, just in terms of, full well-roundedness. And in terms of the Chandler comments that I made, let's not forget that Chandler versus Henderson 1 was 48-47, 48-46 in terms of scoring. It was much closer than...
It was 4 rounds. It was 4.
So, Chandler has looked very good in his past several outings. He's looked confident. His striking has been on point. He's been knocking people out. It's big. But Oliveira has shown true growth. If I'm looking at just tape over the last 3 or 4 fights, Oliveira, because he's had longer fights and because he's been able to show more of his skill set, has shown really true growth across the board. As Matt said, he's really coming to his own, is just kind of a monster now and looked like the best lightweight in the division. Nobody thought that he was going to do what he did to Tony Ferguson. Some people thought he might win, but nobody expected that. I mean, you had him winning, but you didn't have him winning like that.
I said he'd win by decision.
Yes.
I said he'd win by decision.
You said he would.
We're on the record here.
We could go back and watch the tape where you talk about how mind-blowing his performance was. That's the point. He did win by decision. Yes, that is true. But he has just shown, again, crazy growth. Whereas Chandler, yes, he's got knockout power. And he's demonstrated that. He's always had that, but lately he's really been turning it on. And it's possible that Chandler blitzes Oliveira and it's, one hitter quitter and it's done. And it's a first round knockout for Chandler. And there you go, new champ. But if Oliveira is able to weather any storm and aggressiveness that Chandler throws at him, and then it's going to have to, dig deep to win that fight, that's where I favor Oliveira all day based on what we've seen. He's just gotten too good on the ground. His striking has really evolved. The way he's set up, takedowns. Again, go back and watch the Tony fight and watch how he neutralizes Tony at every single possible angle. He's 3 or 4 steps ahead. It's ridiculous. So for me, that I've got to go with Charles Oliveira, Charlie Olives here, because it's just too tempting to looking at all of that. But I wouldn't be shocked if Chandler ends up pulling this off either. That's what makes this such a great fight. It's not like oh man, this is going to be a slaughter, or, oh, here's one guy that's super favored and, oh, we get an upset. Cool. But no, that's not the case here. This is on paper a very even fight. So that's 3 Charlie Olives for us. Let us know in the comments who you have in this fight. Do you think it will be Charles Oliveira? Do you think it will be Michael Chandler? How do you see the fight going? Do you think our preview was accurate? Predictions? Will Charlie Olives or Michael Chandler hold the belt for a long time? That's a very good question. I think it's really going to depend. You got Dustin Poirier in the wings. You got, Conor McGregor. If he wins, I'm sure we'll get a title shot off of that trilogy for Poirier. And of course, we have the biggest threat in the division, Nate Diaz, just waiting to come drop back down and just take out the entire 155 division. Sorry, I had to do it for Drake. So let us know your thoughts and feelings. Hit that like button, subscribe button, bell notification, and until next time, we'll see if I'm still here, depending on how these guys complain to the editor that I just brought up Nate Diaz. So.
I'm writing a strongly worded letter to the management.
Matthew Karen Wells.